So, my name is Mark Dennebaum, and I own 25/8 studios in Scranton, Pennsylvania. And some of you may know me from years ago with doing the podcast with NEPA Scene. We had a wonderful time and experience doing that, and I made some really good friends with that, and really good co-hosts with Rich Howers and Lauren Krolico. And, time and stuff got in the way. So, Rich moved on. He's down at Cool Creative, with Gerard and those great people down there. And I wish him all the luck in the world. And it just, life got in the way, and I didn't really have an opportunity to keep doing it again. So what we're gonna do is try to do this weekly. Try to do this in a way where we can inform, we can educate, we can entertain, and we want to focus on, like music, film, art, local politics, national politics, stuff that's in the news, stuff that affects our area, whether from Main Street to Wall Street, from Washington to Harrisburg, and even in our own backyards in our local government. The point of it is maybe when you're driving in your car or you're sitting home, watching YouTube, thinking about what you want to watch, we'll be there. And if you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, suggestions, I mean, we would all love them. I'm hoping my compatriot next to me, Stacey Toy, is willing to make the commitment to do this, as often as possible. We want to try to get guests ranging from, the law enforcement community, the local politicians, maybe not local politicians. If we can get Trump on, that'd be great. John Kerry would be great. Elizabeth Warren, Stacey, get on that. Start
I'm on it.
Start
I'm
tweeting them. Hit all your gay day friends up, see if they know her.
Absolutely.
And to have an open, frank, honest, and unfiltered and unfettered conversation about what's going on. Try to give you guys as much information as possible to have educated opinions about these things, and maybe some sort of way for you to research further. So this will be the first in a long line of podcasts. We have a couple that are under that we've already recorded and we're going to get out, but I feel that this first podcast that we're going to do right now, I think, is so prescient, considering the circumstances, considering the people it affects, considering the children it affects, and considering the curriculum that it affects. It has to do with state money. It has to do with local taxes. It has to do with how not to run a school district, and maybe in some way on the other side of this, how to run a school district. But we hope you stay in tune and or in touch, or I don't even know what the word is right now. I hope you pay attention. Sit down, class. What was the Cheech and Chong thing where it's like Sister Mary Elephant? I don't know if you know that. We hope you pay attention. We hope you enjoy it. We absolutely would love feedback. And our first guest today is for this episode is Mr. Tom Borthwick, who's an educator from Riverside, who has degrees that I don't even know the letters for them. He's been a friend for years. I think he's one of the more intelligent and well-spoken people that I talk to these things about. So without further ado, let's talk to Mr. Tom Borthwick. Hey, welcome to the 25/8 Studios podcast. I am Mark Dennebaum, and I am graciously here with Stacey Toy.
Hello.
Very well known on Facebook and at other places in the world. And This is going to be our first podcast of many, but I figured, considering what's going on in the world right now, or our little world of Northeast PA, we should have an educator, an educated educator, because I can't figure out better words than, Einstein's prodigy, Mr. Tom Borthwick.
Glad to be here.
So we need to talk about what's going on with the Scranton School District. And we need to, I want to know, so I'm coming from a point of stupidity, which is usually how I approach everything in life. Can you give me a little bit of your background?
Sure. Lifelong Scranton resident, particularly West Side, graduated from there in 2000. Got my bachelor's in English education from Marywood University. 2 master's degrees in MA and an MFA in creative writing. I serve on the Scranton Parking Authority. I run for school board twice. I pay attention as deeply as I can to local political issues because there's so much layered complexity to it, as we'll be talking about, I'm sure, throughout this podcast. So, I'm a teacher at the Riverside School District. I'm an adjunct professor at Marywood University. So I'm pretty steeped in education, but I'm also steeped in politics and policy. And just out of an interest, I know no one ever believes this, but it's out of an interest to serve. I'm the kind of guy that I was just brought up saying you shouldn't complain unless you're going to act. So my way of acting was running for school board in 2011 and 2013. There was a recent appointment available on the school board. I applied for that. I didn't get it, which is fine. The woman who did get it, Paige Cognetti, she's got an MBA from Harvard, so she's the one I would have picked. But I've been paying attention to the district issues for quite a while. I've been writing about them. Back in January, I wrote a post on my blog, which is tomborthwick.com. I wrote a post entitled "The Scranton School District is Doomed," and yeah, I mean, it was.
So this was a year ago.
Yeah, it was very easy to see the writing was on the wall. You could have seen it probably 3 or 4 years ago, but it became inevitable. I think obviously inevitable, probably in January or February. I think it was January of last year. I might have even posted it on New Year's Day just to brighten everybody's.
But what was the thing that made you?
So the past couple of years, what's been happening, and the State Auditor General's report, which was totally scathing, he actually said that the directors need to pull their heads out of their asses, which I mean, a major state figure saying that on the steps of Scranton City Hall is pretty crazy to me. But basically, the revenues have actually been increasing, which the Auditor General's report tell us. But for every extra dollar they're raising in revenue, they're spending an extra $2. And, a lot of schools.
Well, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't.
You can't spend more than you have, right?
Well, you can. It's just not a good idea. You can get loans to cover.
But you still have to pay that back with interest.
Yes, exactly. Right. So that's currently what's happening. And there are so many different factors as to why the school district is a mess. I'll start. I could start with the
real quick, like full disclosure, like sure. I read your blog the other day, and then I went last night to the meeting. Today is the 19th of December. There was a big school board meeting last night that they pushed from Wednesday to last night during the choral shows. Yes, a lot of people from West Side were unhappy. I know that the Tripp Elementary choral show was then. So, and my mother's a teacher in the school district. One of my best friends is a teacher at Mid-Valley. But I read your blog, and I was, the strike was, a little over a year ago, and I've never seen a community come together in support of teachers the way that I saw. Yeah, normally when teachers go on strike, the community screw them. They're getting too much money. They're professional babysitters, right. Stuff like idiotics. Right. And you and I both know that you're not a professional babysitter. Like that's what a daycare is for. I'm a part-time babysitter. Sometimes. I mean, there's some kids that, just like there's some adults, we're by Cooper's here and it's like, daddy daycare. Yes. They have that out there. And, this isn't something that like indirectly affects myself or my family. It directly affects it. Yeah. And as a business owner in Scranton, as a taxpayer in Scranton, as a homeowner in Scranton, this is a big problem because what to me, we are spending our, we have to pay taxes, and we like to know that our taxes are being spent with a modicum of intelligence. So how did we get, first of all, explain the problem, and then how did we get here?
Okay, so right now the Scranton School District this year has to close an $18 million budget deficit, as in all of their projections for revenue and all of their current spending obligations have that large of a gap. And that doesn't happen overnight. So what are the factors? I'll start with where the district in the past, you would hear directors blame.
But why are we hearing about it now?
Because it's the drop dead date. There's no other gimmick.
So we've literally like ran out of railroad track.
Yep, exactly. That's exactly the
Okay,
problem.
so the next thing is to crash
Basically, yes.
or to figure out a way to get more railroad track.
Yes. I think, I mean, I'm not hopeless, but I think it's going to be very, very, very hard. So in the past years, as this.
Oh, one more thing I want to add.
No,
We did ask some school board people to be here. And, you know, maybe for better or worse, they declined because there's a lot of fear right now.
Sure. And from their perspective, I mean,
I don't want to be in their perspective. I remember I was in the room last night and I was like, I looked at my mother and I'm like, I don't want to be on the stage.
yes, I'm sure they're all feeling like they're awful people, even though some of them certainly are not.
Right.
So the first thing that you would hear in the past, if you read the paper, if you went to meetings, whatever, is that it's the state's fault. So let me explain what part is the state's fault. So, we've been under Governor Wolf for a while, but education funding has not been fully restored to like pre-Tom Corbett levels.
Right.
But pension obligations, because of something the state did in the past, have become very expensive for school districts. So their legacy costs, things that they can't avoid paying into their teacher pensions, have to be paid, and they're going up exponentially year after year after year, and it becomes more and more of a burden. So that's the state's fault, and the state hasn't done anything to mitigate that. That's number one. Number two, something that is wrong with Scranton is that the state funding formula for Scranton is lower than cities and districts of comparable size. So let's pretend that Erie School District gets 10 grand per student from the state. Well, we're not far off in size, and yet we're getting 8 grand per student. I don't know the exact numbers, but that's roughly something that's happening. So that means that the state funding formula, there's a problem. So that's another state issue that we have to deal with. So you're looking at underfunding. And then the other major cost driver that is from the state is the charter school explosion. The vast majority of charter schools are corporate entities, and they're for-profit institutions where they're just basically siphoning money from public ed.
Right, and expose after expose that I've seen are like,
They're
these
awful.
are terrible.
They're absolutely awful.
Right.
They almost universally fail on every metric compared to public school, almost universally. So if you look at, say
and these are state standards. These are things that the state says you have to abide by these so that, because at the end of the day, the amount of money that you get or the amount of grants or whatever is based upon the performance of the school. So if the school isn't doing well, they're not going to get as much, or they're
something
not
to
going
that effect. It works similar to that. So
because I'm an idiot, so you have to explain it to me in a stupid way.
I'll do my best.
Okay.
So let's say
treat me like one of your students.
There you go. There'd be a lot more abuse involved. So imagine. So let's say I think it's maybe $16,000 a kid might be something like the average of what Scranton spends on a student. Well, if that kid goes to a charter school, that we lose $16,000 and we don't have that body in that classroom. Now, here's the thing. Charter schools tend not to have nearly the ability, like not even just ability, they just don't pay nearly so well as a public school.
No, I know some people who are teachers at charter schools,
Yeah,
it's hand to mouth, like what,
yeah,
what,
and
what
they're
making.
abused. They're underpaid and they're abused.
And they have no protection.
Zero protection. So where do you think that extra money is going? It's not going to the teachers. It's going to whatever ownership
Corporate entity is that owns the charter school.
So that's the major problem with charter schools. So that's the third thing I would say that the state is responsible for that's bankrupting districts. But if you read the Auditor General's report, they straight up, the AG straight up says nothing about the state and everything about local mismanagement. So that's where we have to go next. There are lots of things. I remember running in 2011 and 2013. Some of the things that I put on the blog post you referred to were things that I ran on back then that haven't happened. So district purchasing is done by building and not as a single entity.
What does that mean, though?
So every building principal does their own contract for paper. Why?
Really?
Yeah. Oh, what a waste. Yeah, it's nonsense. I said that in 2011, and it's 2017, and now they're saying, oh, maybe we should consolidate. So and maybe there were people on the board that wanted to do something, but there just wasn't enough political will, or maybe someone in the business office said that's too complicated. I don't know the answer, but the bottom line is it didn't get done. And you have simple things like buying paper or buying toilet paper or whatever, things that every single building needs, that's done on an individual basis. So you're decreasing your power to get a better price because you're not purchasing in bulk the way that you would if you did it as a single district.
Right. So it's the difference between McDonald's instead of corporate going, here's how much a bun is, here's how much it's McDonald's by McDonald's. Like, so the McDonald's, down the street here is going to have to negotiate on its differently than the one in Southside.
Yes. So that is silly. That's an example of an easy fix that you could have done in 2011 or just whenever this was a problem and saved money exponentially over time. They didn't do that. There's just a million different things that they didn't do that they should have done.
We'll go through some big, the glaring.
The busing contract. So there hasn't up to this point ever been any kind of record. So the busing contract itself is a disaster, but one particular part of it where I think they can recover money is that they just gave the busing company $4 million free dollars. The busing company said, we're going to charge you this money, and the district just paid the bill.
What were they claiming?
So both sides say that in the past they both agreed to an additional surcharge. First of all, most people don't say like, look, we've got a contract, but I'd rather spend more money on you and not get anything else out of it.
Right.
No one says that. So it's weird on its face that it's happening. But there's no written record of it from the busing company or from the district.
So there's no written agreement that says this is how we're going to...
Zero, nope, nothing. The bills just came and they just paid. So that's $4 million over a couple of years. The district should sue to get it back. The next glaring error because...
now let me ask a question.
Sure.
They paid the bill.
They did.
How do they get it back?
Well, so if you overpay for something, you are entitled to your money. Simple.
So where does it say that? Like, where's the protection for that says that?
I'm sure I can't point to a specific law, but if JCPenney overcharges you, they owe you what they overcharged you.
So if I go to JCPenney for a pair of pants and they're $20 and Sears is $17, is JCPenney obligated to give me $3
No,
back?
it's not even that. It's the same company. It would be like if the ticket price were $20, you're like, here's $25, and they never correct you. That's a better analogy. And so, they're
just assuming keep the change.
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
But the thing is, the bus company sent the bill and the district paid it. So it's like, even though the ticket price that we both agreed on is $20 for those pair of pants,
right?
You want me to pay $25, and you know what? I'm going to do it.
That doesn't make sense.
Exactly. So that extra $5 gap, the contract says you only pay $20 for these pair of pants. And so what the district is looking at now is like, okay, maybe you need to give me that $5 back. But in this case, it's $4 million.
How does that happen? Because we're talking about a 4 with 6 zeros after.
Yeah, I think on the business office's end, they have to accept culpability. The business manager is retiring at the end of this year, and I think that's a bright spot. But the damage is done. To do this is malfeasance. It's reckless. It's nonsensical. There is no...
To get us to the position that we're in now.
Yeah, not just that, but like to allow a bill to go through without a contract. If I could just go home and write up 10 bills and send them out to 10 random people. And if one of them's a district, they're just going to give me free money. Yeah, we'll pay that bill. That's how nonsensical it is in that office. It needs to be fixed, and it will probably be in better shape, barring an awful choice. But I think the directors understand the severity of the situation. But Greg Sunday, the business manager, he's retiring. He'll be out, and we can overhaul it now. But I would say he's culpable for these mistakes.
But how the hell did this happen?
Well, I'll give you a good example. It's a parallel example. The Sansky, the garage in Southside, that he was not a district employee. His bills that he submitted to the district, I looked at some of them. They just say work on truck, and they're like $3,000, and then they just paid it. And then not only that, they gave him health care. And we have records for 7 years of it, but they're only obligated to keep records for 7 years of it. So he has way more than 7 years worth of these benefits and payouts without any kind of sense to any of it. So we have records.
So he's not giving itemized invoices. There hasn't been itemized.
No, it's in their handwritten.
So they don't know.
They're handwritten.
So nobody knows what the hell they're paying for.
Nope. No, not at all. Doesn't make any sense. So that we
Jesus
have,
Christ, even we itemize our
I
invoices.
know that's insane.
Who doesn't? And so about $650,000 is documented as having been spent on him and his family. And
Now, that's not to say that the buses and some of that stuff doesn't need upkeep.
oh yeah, these things do need upkeep, but you need but the thing is, we also have the district has a maintenance department. Like they can do some upkeep. So why is this the case? How did this guy just get free health care? He's not an employee. You don't get it. They just
Well,
give it
I
to him
have
anyway.
clients that don't give me health care.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing though that's crazy is the fact that the bills show up at the business office and they just pay them. Who just pays a bill without scrutinizing it? I scrutinize every bill. If
we did that with Comcast. What the hell's this $6?
yeah,
blah blah blah.
Exactly. And then you call and you scream and you figure it out, and then they say sorry, maybe, or whatever, or they jack up your rates. I don't know. Comcast sucks, but it's awful. But the thing is, the lack of scrutiny from the business office, that's where the culpability is. So now,
Who does the business office answer to?
So the super and the board. So I can't fault the board for not knowing that was going on exactly. However, I could say that they did bring it up 3 years ago as a problem. I believe it was Mark McAndrew, the school director, who brought up that why is this guy getting these payments? And then he just never followed up. So they never stopped. Oops. So that would be like a dereliction of duty kind of thing, because there's got to be, you have to, you know, these people, you don't want to say negative things about these people because they're members of the community, but members of the school board, they have to be culpable for what's happening.
But if I run over your cat, I'd expect everyone to know that I ran over your cat.
Yeah, exactly.
So how, out of the million ways that you can think of, right? So like where did the fire start?
I'd have to get
And your best guess.
The business office is
Years ago.
Yeah, and I just think it's just bad practice over and over and over. But that's not. I mean, but also equally politics, because look at the busing contract. There's so much politics behind that. First of all, they didn't bid it out. Second of all, they were the last Auditor General report. They're like, you need to bid out the busing contract. What do? They offer an extension of the busing contract. So they're like, oh, no. Well, we just extended it, so we'll bid it at the end of the extension.
Which is 2020.
Yes. So they're like, oh, we followed the recommendations of the Auditor General's report.
Well, they didn't. They extended it.
But it's a semantic argument that the board at the time, Bob Sheridan, was making. He was saying that the busing company said, we're going to charge less for, let's say, fuel or whatever. They're going to save a couple $100,000 when
But how can they charge less at that time and not before that was brought up?
I know it's absurd. That's what I'm saying. So
it's almost like you got caught and you're like, well, I won't poop on your lawn anymore because you caught me.
Yeah. So the reason
I'm still going to continue to exist and live next to you.
Yeah, and some of the directors still might even defend the extension of the bus contract, and this is how they defend it. I disagree, but I get their logic. They said, DeNaples said, look, if you extend this contract to 2020, we will immediately give you a discount on the contract. So instead of, if you're paying, let's say $1 million a year, you're going to pay $800,000 a year if you extend it to 2020. But the thing is, if you don't bid, you don't know what other people are going to just charge. So what if the contract is
what if somebody's just as good comes in at 500,000?
Yes, and that's where I disagree with the directors. Look, they're right. They did realize immediate savings, but they don't know how much savings they could have realized if they actually bid.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, right?
Sure.
And this is NEPA politics, right?
Yeah.
So the pavilion up at Montage, Lackawanna County, the basically the county's in charge of it, right?
No,
Or did that not happen anymore?
It's what is it? It's leased out to, was it One Nation, Live Nation?
Live Nation.
Live Nation, yeah.
Right.
That's
So they wanted to rebid it.
Yes.
And what happened is that the only person that bid was Live Nation for the price that they had before it went out to bid.
And that's a risk you take, but at least you took the risk and at least you know.
Right.
So, and I'm sure that there would be people who would be willing to bid. It's a
For the bus contracts?
It's a massive multi-million-dollar contract. Of course, people are going to bid. There are multiple school districts in the area, which means
are there bus companies around here capable of taking care of it?
Well, here's the thing. That's one of the other arguments that I've heard from directors. The only one big enough is them. That's why they didn't bid it out years ago.
Right.
But the thing is, if let's say I'm a multimillionaire with a small bus company, and let's say I, handle the Mid-Valley, I'm going to put a bid on that contract, and I'll just buy more buses if I get it, because I'm going to make money in the long run.
Right.
Done. Problem solved. So I get that they're trying to make the argument that only Naples can do it, but that's not the case. Because, like I said, if I own a bus company, I can just buy more buses.
Okay. So that's just the bus side of it.
Yeah, and it's a massive dollar amount. That's why it's worth the focus. Because if you're looking at the $4 million overpayment, plus God knows how much yearly they're paying more than they could.
So does everybody kind of seem to be in agreement that it was an overpayment?
This one I don't know. Now I do talk to a lot of directors
because you seem to think it's an overpayment.
Oh, it's definitely an overpayment. There's not a question. But the thing is, some of them are saying, well, it's too late. We can't get it back. We can only just change moving forward. No, if I overpay or someone overcharges, I want my money back.
Yeah, but don't most contracts have? Well, number one, is there a contract?
There's a regular bus contract, but not for that extra money that was given.
But isn't there in a contract, like everybody should have in their contract, like a way out?
No, not like this. That's the one thing that I mentioned on the blog that should be worth exploring. I don't think legally you're going to be able to do it without them suing for the remaining value of the contract. Yeah. So,
but wouldn't they still save money?
Well, and that's the thing. It depends on the wording of the contract. So if they say that you're supposed to give us, like $500 a bus per day, at a minimum of blah, blah, blah. Well, check out what that minimum is, and then check out what the cost of rebidding this would be. And then maybe you'll save money. That's what I suggest, but it doesn't sound like a winning proposition. It sounds like we're stuck till 2020. When people breach contracts, they get sued, and the district doesn't need more litigation right now.
Right. Okay, so another thing is lawsuits.
Yeah, that one's a little tougher. So I just know from dealing with, and you probably know because your mother in the district and friends in the district, but, my wife's a teacher. I know tons of teachers. The special ed situation in the district is abhorrent in that it's all over the place. It's the law as regards special ed, and I deal with it as a teacher, is very tough, and it's very hard to be perfect because the law is that everyone deserves a free and equal education, which is great, but you have to write these things called IEPs, individualized education plans, which are simply like if a student has a problem, you have to accommodate that student. Well, you hear horror stories where somehow it gets into this IEP that the teacher has to call the father every day. Well, what if you do that what if you have 40 IEP kids?
That you have to call.
And so the teacher, and also that might be like inappropriate. What if the parent, there's a whole, anyway, bottom line is teachers are just not going to do that, and they shouldn't. And it would be a mistake for that to be in the IEP. But guess what? Now that it's in there, it's a legal document and it's binding. And if you don't do it, you get sued. And so the stupid things like this happen constantly, and the district gets sued all the time. IEPs have been around for a really long time, and the Scranton School District hasn't figured out how to do it. A lot of districts still have trouble with them, but
how long have you been teaching?
This is my 13th year.
Okay, how long has your wife been teaching?
This is her 4th year.
And she's in Scranton?
Yeah.
Okay, so over your period of time in your career and your wife's period of time in your career, have you seen IEPs increase?
The amount of them? Absolutely. Yeah. And the types of accommodations? Absolutely. She's seen
which every new IEP is, in a weird way, it's kind of like a tighter handcuff on the educator.
Yeah. That's probably an unpopular thing for me to say.
It's not to say that like these kids don't need it, but some of them go overboard.
The IEPs, it wouldn't be the kid.
I'm not blaming the kid.
Yeah. Sometimes it would be the parents, and sometimes it would just be the fault of someone writing it that just doesn't know any better. And that's where the lawsuits come from, because you can really only sue as a parent if the district is failing to meet the IEP needs. Well, I mean, if the IEP need is the kid gets a study guide, that's not hard. You can meet that need.
Right.
But if there's like these crazy accommodations that become impossible, you're going to get sued. And so I think a lot of the
I mean, you're not talking out of thin air. You've seen these
Oh
IEPs.
yeah, I know tons of them. Yeah, I mean, I know of specific lawsuits. You know, they happen all the time. They're actually normal. You'll see advertisements in the paper for lawyers like, "Hey, is your kid getting basically screwed in your kid's education? Does your kid have an IEP? Call me. I'll make you a lot of money." You probably, if you open your paper, they're in there every day. So, that's the thing you have to worry about.
How much money do you think that the Scranton School District
millions
paid out
every year? Millions.
Every year, millions.
Yeah. I'm sure it's if they told me $2.5 million to $3 million a year, I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't be surprised.
Wow.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're looking at what is it, $127 million budget, but 2.3 or 2.5 million, however much it is. I wouldn't be surprised. And I know that recently they got it down. Like maybe it's a new special ed director might be implementing some reforms.
All right. So, but if look, there's going to be lawsuits anywhere. It's a public. It's a public thing, right? The trick is not the trick. The goal is to keep those low.
Yeah.
And but every time they get sued, does the insurance premium go up?
They pay them. The district pays out of pocket for these. They're not insured.
This isn't even insured. This isn't even insurance money. This is just like, you're going to sue us, we're going to pay it.
Yep.
So you think it's like $2 million a year?
Yeah, I
like, you wouldn't be surprised,
No,
but you also wouldn't be surprised at $1 million a year.
Yeah, the reason I say that is because I know that the newest director of special ed, whose name is escaping me, was brought on specifically by the board to fix this specific problem, and I know she's had success in that regard. So, but I know that it's still an ungodly high amount that has been crippling over the past couple of years.
So, where else are we having problems? Like, I want to get us to today. How we got here, and I kind of want to be as specific as possible without being boring.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can. There's a million things I can talk about. Why don't you pick one?
Well, here's the block. Like, implement all the Auditor General's recommendations.
So we've talked about a lot of those, the
Okay.
busing contract, things like that.
What is the evidence-based direct mailers to parents?
Oh, okay. So you know how I mentioned.
Well, wait, these are fixes, right? But these fixes are coming from a place of broken. Your recommendations.
Yeah. Some of them are, yes, and some of them are more like proactive. Here's why haven't you been doing this? So
why hasn't anyone? I mean, it's almost like it's like Deep Impact. Like, Morgan Freeman knows that the comet is coming. Why has no one done anything? It's almost like you can see that this is, like, at some point this is going to hit the wall.
In particular, the past, I'd say year, maybe even two, you started to hear like Cy Dewey and PJ Duffy start to get apocalyptic, and nobody likes negative language like that. And
I don't care if it's true.
No, I know. But so people. They were open about it, but you need 5 votes to get anything done. And, you get comfortable as a director, or maybe you just don't want to admit things are as bad as they are. I can't tell you the psychology of the board, but they didn't act. And every year it was like one-time fix after one-time fix. And
but you knew about some of this stuff, and like you were proposing some of this stuff in 2011.
Yeah, just as common sense. I wasn't doing it out of a sense of you guys are
failing.
You're going to collapse. It started to get more clear the collapse was coming probably like maybe 2014 when they I believe starting in 2014, 15 and 16 they were using one-time revenue sources to plug the gap, and then in 16 they straight up used a loan to cover their expenses for the year, which you just know for a fact that you're screwed.
See, but you knew 2 years ago with just selling off something just to get revenue in there that can't happen the year after.
Yeah, exactly, of course.
So no one planned for the year after.
No, but like I said, I remember particularly Cy Dewey and PJ Duffy both being pretty direct about how this is not going to be sustainable and we really need to address it.
I just don't see anybody talking in the way that like you and I would talk, where it would be like, look, the shit is about to hit. Like, I can't stress this enough. This is going to happen. Yep. And these guys said it.
Those two, yeah.
Not in the words that I just used.
No, but the thing is, so there's a lot of, and I think it's hopefully being set aside, but even then there's still a fractured board. But there's a lot of nasty politics that go on behind the scenes. Some directors are a little more above it than others. Some are in the thick of it. Some of them take political decisions personally. You can go on and on. I think a lot of the dynamic was probably political in nature that caused paralysis.
This to me seems like your hair's on fire. Let's get some water. Like it seems as blatant and as obvious as that. So,
Yeah.
So how does politics play a part in that? How does somebody get influenced outside of common sense?
Well, I'll paraphrase some, kind of some actual behind the scenes stuff. So, hair's on fire. Let's get some water. Like, screw you. You don't like water the way I like water, so I'm not working with you.
So it's like more about them than the district.
Yeah. Well, it's politics, So politicians, the thing is, there's no reward for being on the school board financially.
No, it's not even financial.
You don't get paid.
Yeah, you don't get paid.
So what do you get? You get power. You get your ego stroked. You get attention.
What power? Like what power is there?
The power to hire, fire, the power of the purse, the power to give contracts. Now is everybody like, an awful, selfish, money grubbing piece of garbage who hands out jobs to their friends? No, but enough of that goes on that, and then election stuff. I'll give you a couple good examples. A couple people are like, oh, when I ran for office, your brother had my opponent's sign in the yard. I'm never working with you again. People do shit like that.
That's petty, terrible.
No, of course, but that's the very nature of politics.
I'm just shaking my head. I don't even know what to say.
Yeah. Oh, it's a disaster. That's what most people should do. It's just shake their heads and feel like, does anybody have shame?
I mean, it just feels like it's like, you know what it feels like? It feels like a diagnosis of like terminal cancer. Like the only thing, like, what are you supposed to do? Like, you can't fight it.
I will say this. I do believe, with a minor exception, but of two directors, but I think the vast majority of directors are not just aware that there's a problem, but are willing to do something about it. And I think for the most part, with the fact that they put a Harvard MBA on the board recently, that's a good sign. I put in for 2. I obviously, based on my post, I was ready to get working, but I don't care. I'm glad she's there. She's going to bring something to the table, obviously, that I couldn't and a lot of other people couldn't. So, and I speak again of Paige Cognetti. But the thing is that the board that's there now, and you have new members like Barb Dixon, the president, she's phenomenal, and Katie Gilmartin, also phenomenal. They're there with a fresh perspective, and they know that this is a disaster and this has to be fixed. And some of the board and all the board members know. But the thing is, it's like, oh, well, we can plug the gap for this year, so why don't we just do that? And then they say
is that the
again.
whole like kicking the can down the road?
It absolutely is. And now we have this, and there's,
I mean, it's literally like do or die right now.
It is. And when I wrote the Scranton School District is doomed, that post that I referenced earlier, I said, if the state comes in, the union's contract gets thrown out the window. You are done. Everyone across the board is going to see 10% salary cuts. Healthcare benefits are going to be eviscerated. Everything is going to be eviscerated. Programs gone. Everything that can be sold. Maintenance, I'm sure, will be privatized if the state comes in. It doesn't matter if the state comes in, it's over. There is no.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about what would be the factors of of the state coming in, and does anybody have any say of it? Like okay, we have to check box 1, 2, and 3, and when those boxes are checked, the state comes in.
So we're already on financial watch, which is a prelude. But if we can't balance the budget and we just go broke, they'll come in. If we go bankrupt, they come in. And
they have the power and authority to do that.
Yes, they'll appoint a receiver, and the receiver's job is to take a hacksaw to everything. And I know from my conversations, particularly with PJ Duffy, he's talked to districts that have experienced this, and they said, whatever you do, do not let the state come close. They said, like, lay off every teacher before you let the state come in. That's how bad the state is. And I mean, that's a radical, crazy thing to say, but the state will,
because they just don't care.
No, their job is to establish fiscal solvency. And if it's like, oh, I'm going to lay off 500 teachers, their contract is irrelevant, so they have no workplace protection. So the other the remaining teachers just have to do the job of the 500 who are gone.
So do they null and void the contract? Yep. Because of
that's
like
just,
what gives them the power to do that?
The laws governing receivership.
Okay, so
I know it's a disaster.
Like, it just seems so like unreal to even be at this point, especially going through this year after year after year.
But they knew.
And yes, they knew. It blows my mind.
Is it safe for me to say that they knew?
They had to. I
don't necessarily blame the new school director.
No. But I think there's probably an element of denial, or probably like it'll get better.
I mean, is it literally like if I close my eyes, the monsters will go away?
Yeah, like, did you ever hear of the optimism bias? It's just a human psychological need to think that things are are going to be better than they actually are.
Let's just hope and have faith.
Yes. You hear, I mean, like, maybe they were just, sharing Facebook memes.
But at the end of the day, like, after 2 years, I can just decide not to run, and it's not my problem anymore.
Yeah.
It's somebody's new problem.
Yeah, there's that.
And they wipe their hands of it and say it wasn't me.
Yeah, well, that's the business manager's retiring. He doesn't have to worry about culpability starting on January 1st.
I mean, I talked to some of the people who ran and won for school board, and I literally went, why?
Yeah, everyone says that.
Like, why would you do that? Like, you're literally, you're knowingly and willfully jumping in, like putting your head in a lion's mouth and hoping it doesn't bite.
Yeah, hey, do you want disaster? Sure.
Okay. I don't think we're fully there about how we got there.
So, I mean, I think, well, we've definitely exhausted the fact that we got the kicking the can down the road stuff, the one-time revenue generators or stopgap measures, especially the loan last year. They're just not sustainable. They didn't create a sustainability model. But here's the thing, though. Like I said earlier, revenues have increased. You also know that pension contributions are, and actually they know
going to go up.
They know that, and they know it year by year. So there's a lot of things, preventative things, proactive things that never happened that should have. So that's kind of what I get at in my post. So why aren't you bidding out healthcare every year? A couple of years ago, I'm going to say maybe it was 3 or 4 years ago, Geisinger and at the time Blue Cross got into a competitive bidding war for the healthcare administration contract for the district.
Which means they're going back and forth going like, well, we can do it lower. We can do it lower. We can do it lower.
Yeah. So basically what happened was Blue Cross is like, no, we're going to charge the same couple million a year that we charge. And the district's like, we're going to switch to Geisinger. And Blue Cross is like, fine. And so I think it happened this way. I'm almost positive. They were getting ready to switch to Geisinger, and Blue Cross came back and said, we'll undercut them by $1 million. Like right before they were going to sign. And then Geisinger's like, we'll undercut them by $2 million. And it was a bidding war. And
just so the audience knows, my eyes turn like saucers.
Yeah. Well, that's
because they just went from a price to $3 million below the price.
Yeah. Very quickly. And wow. I forget what
for the same plan.
Yes. And that contractually, they actually have to offer the same coverage no matter this plan switch. So that saved the district a fortune. Why isn't that happening every year? Because first of all, it's a healthcare administration plan. They're not actually insuring the district. The district is self-insured. They pay their own stuff out of pocket. It's just that the plan itself, they just run it. They process the payments and the bills and all that. That's not nearly so financially burdensome for Geisinger or now
Blue
it's
Cross.
Highmark. It's not going to be so financially burdensome as the full insurance package. They're just administering it. I'm sure you can get them to underbid each other every year. Bid it. So even if you're saving $100,000, just do it. Bid it out. Let other players be a part of the game. Especially since, I don't know why they haven't bid it out since Highmark got into town, because Highmark has more resources than Blue Cross now that they've merged. So they could maybe have a stronger bid against Geisinger. Geisinger's been growing exponentially. There's they are nationally renowned for some of their programs. Why let those two go at it?
My family owns a steel business. Like every year they would bid out their healthcare.
Of course. Come on. So that's something that should just be on the books, and they shouldn't be giving contract extensions like they did with the bus contract, but bid that thing out every 2 years. All these kinds of things should be happening.
Not 10 years. I mean, Jesus Christ.
It's not necessary. If you can get a lower price by encouraging competitive bidding, do it every single time.
I mean, am I crazy that the bus contract seemed like, it was something that was like drawn on paper in like a restaurant, and then it was like, that's it.
It's not quite so sinister as that, but
I'm not saying it's sinister. I'm just saying like it's more like that handshakey.
Yeah, I don't.
And who approves of that? Like, does the board vote on it?
Yeah, the initial time I believe the first time he got the contract, they said no one else has this many buses. We're not going to bid it out. He gets the contract. He gets it for this dollar amount, and I'm sure the bus.
But let's do it for 2 years and see if somebody else can grow. And then make it competitive. Isn't that like a free market economy?
Wouldn't you think?
Isn't that what we're supposed to be doing?
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons why you're dealing with an issue. Same thing with the purchasing. We could bid out purchasing for, like, there are tons of paper companies.
To me, that's insane that each school has to negotiate their own prices for expendables.
Yep.
For things that everyone needs.
Yep.
You got to make a pee-pee, you got to make a poo-poo, you got to get toilet paper, right?
Yep.
You want to give your syllabus, or you want to give a test, you need paper.
Yep.
Like these are things that like we all understand that these things, cleaning products.
Yep.
Why is this not an across the school district thing? Because to me that would be like the business administrator, right? That's who's in charge.
That's where the
like,
fault
are they
would lie.
sitting there going like, nah?
You know, one of the defenses I heard.
I don't want to vilify like anybody.
Yeah, well, I mean,
but you have to. Somebody has, a bunch of people have to take responsibility for what's happening.
So I would say that even though, the defense that a guy like the business manager is going to have, and I've heard that he's made this defense, is that I just do what I'm told by the board. So, and actually I think he made that defense in a Chris Kelly column about the Sansky overpayments. I just do what I'm told, even though the board didn't authorize it.
But shouldn't he be like the Secret Service of the money?
Yeah,
like he's like, not only am I, sometimes I have to protect you from yourselves.
Yeah, you have to be a proactive steward. That's, I mean, you could objectively say that that's not the case, because if I were business administrator, and I'm not qualified, I'm just giving you a hypothetical, I would say, why aren't we doing this? And then I would say, we will do this, because if you did it and you said to the board, this will guarantee money savings, and it makes sense, and it's also easier, and it will help us keep track of inventory.
But I mean, does the business manager have a lobotomy?
It's entirely possible.
Because that's the only thing that explains it to me without being proactive. Like, to me, like, that's a job. You're paid. You're hired. You're supposed to be there to do that. That's not something you run for. You know? Yep. Wouldn't it be good to make everyone else look good by saving money?
Yeah, you would think.
And they don't do it. They just, do they just think that like money falls from the sky and like we'll be okay?
Yeah, you know,
and then eventually that aloofness is just like, oh shit, now we're screwed.
Part of my, the district is doing post is that one of the problems is patronage, and it's a little harder to engage in patronage in the union because with the teachers union, I mean, because you have to have qualifications to be a teacher. You can't just throw out a job to a buddy. The administrators often, not always, but often are part of the patronage system. You see them at the school directors' parties all the time. And I think that's you might not always be getting the most qualified people. They're qualified on paper, but not necessarily qualified.
I mean, the kid who just got out of med school who got a 90 and graduated and is considered a doctor, I still think the guy who has a C that's been performing surgeries for 20 years successfully is the guy I'm going with.
Yes, exactly. And that's kind of that's what you mean. You look at experience, but I wouldn't be able to point to other than apocryphal stories about patronage within the district, but that's how those games are played. You're not going to be getting a major 6-figure job with a very, very political nine-member board unless there's some kind of something going on somewhere. I'm not saying it's nefarious, because cronyism and nepotism and all that.
It's nepotism.
Yeah, there you go. Nepotism. None of that stuff is illegal. It's just shitty.
Would it border along unethical, immoral?
Oh, well, yeah, you can make that argument, but that doesn't make it illegal. So, like, I'm going to give my buddy a job or whatever, or this guy's been at all my parties, I'm going to give him a job. There's, it sucks.
I like Tom. He smells well. We should give him a job.
Yeah, like, or I grew up with his like, you hear this stuff all the time. Oh, this guy, I grew up with his dad. Great guy. Well, let's do this.
That doesn't make him qualified.
No, I know, but that's not the consideration. Because think about it. And it's part of the way that the system is. It's one of the reasons why I think things like publicly funded elections are important. But the idea that you need to raise money. When I ran in 2011, I raised $7,000, and I didn't even come close to having enough money to blanket the city with mailers, or even
for a job that pays zero.
And I didn't go to, you weren't looking at vendors giving me money,
right.
It was the average Joe coming to a party at Kilcoyne's and West Side,
right.
And same thing in 2013. I raised $9,000, I think it was, in 2013. And it was still a drop in the bucket compared to...
So apparently you're good at wasting other people's money too.
Yeah, I know. I still deal with guilt. At least they had some beers on a Friday night. It's hard, but
it's a gamble. Like we like Tom. We're going to give, this is our best shot at getting Tom. But at the same time, anytime you give money to a candidate, you're pulling the slot machine.
Yeah, and because it's local, the people who go, they care about you for the most part.
Right.
Like, my parties were usually people that I knew, not like political, hand grab.
I mean,
fests.
are you like a political like pariah?
I think. Oh, yeah, definitely. There's not a question. Oh, Jesus.
I like that word, political pariah.
Yeah, but you're a political pariah on both sides.
Everywhere. So here's the thing.
Everywhere you turn, it's like, oh, Borthwick.
Yes, I love that too. You know, it's really funny that you say that, and that's probably why I didn't get the board position. But this is
he talks honestly too much.
It's a problem. People don't like it. They think I'm a wild card, and I'm actually really, really predictable. They think I'm not. It's just that I don't act the way a politician's supposed to act. I say what I think all the time, regardless of consequence, and I usually think about it first, so I usually know what I'm talking about. And I know that that's really rare for politicians, and I do know for a fact many of them who resent me for a lot of this shit. I don't care, and a lot of them make suppositions. I remember, so you belong to this faction. No, I don't. I can't stand that guy. You know, you belong to that faction. No, I don't. This guy has no integrity. I would never. Did I ever tell
you about the phone call I got? Remember when Chuck Volpe was trying to get rid of the county commissioner?
Oh, yeah,
county administrator.
Yeah.
So I was number 11 to like the Facebook page. And somebody called me up going like, how dare you?
Oh, God.
You know, you started that page. And I'm like, whoa, number one, I'm number 11, right? I remember when I clicked it, I was number 11. And what does that have any basis of doing? If anybody knows Facebook, I'm not going to get the updates about what's going on with that situation unless I like the page.
Yeah.
To counter your argument, you didn't argue with me about the page I like boobies.
It's true.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So that, but and it's this knee jerk, you know, immediately like, let's not think about it. You know, checkers outsells chess. We're not going to make them. And that's what this whole situation seems like.
Yeah. And
like, there's no consciousness to say, oh, the future is going to happen. And are we prepared for it?
Yeah.
And that's life. I mean, that's
common sense.
Exactly.
I mean, just from everything that you're telling me right now, like common sense would tell me like the train's going to run out of track. Like if you hop on a train in Washington heading toward California and you put it in 60 miles an hour and you don't stop, you're going to go in the ocean.
Yep.
This is effing crazy. Okay, so I'm looking at some of your ideas here, and I liked how at the end of it you said, please steal my ideas. So we're at what we're at right now, which is what, $19 million structural deficit?
But yeah, about 8 million. And actually
8 million or 19 million?
They're 18 million, excuse me, but they have I think it's about 8 million left. Either that or they shaved 8 million off. I can't remember exactly, but those cuts that they propose, the absolute eviscerating of this district, don't close the budget gap. Like not even, like I think there's 8 million left, even if they furlough 89 teachers. So that number is going to have to go up.
Okay,
if they're going to survive.
So this is where I'm going to get my mood.
Ooh.
For anybody listening out there, and I'm hoping that some of them are citizens. I'm hoping some of them are administration, and I'm hoping some of them are board members. I own, for better or worse, basically a production company that does marketing and advertising and strategy and you know, whatever we can do. And it's creative. It comes from a place of like, we have to be creative problem solvers. We have to come up with ideas. We have to do. If it wasn't for my high school experience and even my grade school experiences with photography, with home ec, with art, with pottery, with the industrial arts, with the library. Believe it or not, I went to a library before. I would not be who I am right now, nor would I have known what to follow in my life, right? What they're proposing right now is to take away free thought, is to take away creative problem solving, is to take away basically joy. Because no one's in a bio class going like, this is so much better than going to see Star Wars. No kid is ever going to do that. And a lot of the kids in this district, whether you want to realize it or not, don't come from really good backgrounds. You know, my mom would tell me a story about a kid who's consistently late for school, consistently punished for being late for school. Little do they realize that he is responsible for getting his 6-year-old sister to school, his 8-year-old sister to school. Mm-hmm. And the only way he can do that is to be late. So he's going to sacrifice He's getting detention all the time. He's doing that to make sure that his brothers and sisters are getting a good education, that they're there on time, that they're responsible, that they're good students, that they're good people.
I've seen that in my
Heartbreaking.
career.
The teachers that you're looking to get rid of, teachers like my mom, are teachers who, for no reason other than their compassion and their understanding, buy Christmas gifts for these kids. My mother's a phys ed teacher. She will buy clothes for them.
Yep.
She will buy socks. She will buy shoes. She will buy shorts. She will do whatever she can to help these kids out within her control.
And that's what we do. That's the job.
That is not, and no one realizes this. Like, they make too much money. They have too much health insurance. They have too much. You're spending a lot of that money on your students, on your books, on your curriculums, on everything that you do, that you go to school every day. And look, I go to speak to Tunkhannock Area High School once a year, right? I start at 8 a.m. I get done at 3 o'clock. I'm exhausted.
It is a mentally taxing job. It really is.
And the thing is I'm giving the same speech every period. And my speech is like, it's the road less traveled. And don't be an asshole. Like, that's the goal in life, is to treat people nice, don't be an asshole, and learn as much as you can, how much you can. Why not sports? Because here's the way I think about it, right? And you tell me if I'm wrong. You're an educator, and Stacey, you're a mom. So it's 0.01 or 0.001 of athletes actually make it into professional sports.
Yep. And so the people who are going to utilize the arts are going to be exponentially higher. That's something that I put in my post, and I haven't actually gotten any blowback from anybody, and I thought I would.
You didn't have crosses burning in your yard yet?
I thought I would, and I thought my wife would get harassed at work.
Can I just tell you something? Like, I love how you put yourself out there, and you're like, whatever may come, but at least I can look at myself.
I don't give a shit. I love a fight, man.
Yeah, but you can look at yourself in the mirror.
And you're informed. You're extremely informed. So, I mean, it's not like a normal person.
Yeah, like when I'm home watching, episodes of like Top Chef, he's home reading like the budget. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Or the Auditor General's.
But because he cares. I mean,
it was fun to read. I know that no one else would say that.
Well, you're an Uber nerd.
Yeah.
But I mean, your dad owns a recording studio.
Yeah,
how many kids would he not be getting into his recording studio if they didn't have the opportunity to do this?
To learn music, yeah. And I was one of those kids.
And mom and dad are working 2 freaking jobs. So where are they going to find time to teach Johnny how to play guitar?
Yeah, exactly. So you make point after point that is awesome. In 4th grade, they put a violin in my hands, and it changed my life. I write short stories that get published. I get some money for it. Like, that's very hard to do.
Yeah.
And the seeds for that were in my high school and middle school educations. In 6th grade, I took the Lord of the Rings trilogy out from the library at West. They thought I'd like it because I said I love that kind of stuff, and I never stopped reading since. And that's an integral part of my life. I remember my senior year schedule was AP European History, AP Literature, Creative Writing, Orchestra, and Journalism, and Computer Music, where they taught me how to compose music digitally. That was at West Side. That, especially with computer music, that sounds like something that should be existing now. That's how ahead of the game it was in the year 2000.
Right.
And Scranton gave me that. And that's an integral part of who I am. I mean, hell, 2 of my English teachers, my journalism and creative writing teacher and my AP literature teacher, were at my wedding. And they now work with my wife, who got a job in the same building as them. And I was just at their Christmas party not too long ago. I see them and talk to them on a regular basis.
I mean, they were major influences in your life.
Yeah, they changed my life. My God. And so you're going to take the arts. Like, think about the amount of kids, and I see it all the time just as an educator, the amount of kids who hate all of the regular class. Like, math kills them. They're bad at it, and they hate themselves because they can't do it. And then they walk into a cooking class, and they can make magic with the ingredients in front of them.
Yeah, here's what you have. Good luck. That's Iron Chef, by the way.
They'll never get calculus, but my God, they're gonna make some of the tastiest dishes ever. And I just ran into a former student of mine who went into the culinary arts, and he talked about how great an experience it was to have that and now be successful because of it. And you're gonna say, nah.
I just want so for everyone to understand this, right? When you cut art, here's what you cut, and the amazing thing is the guy running the PA system at the meeting last night. Sorry, he's an artist.
Nice.
The chairs you're shitting in, the chairs that everybody on that board and that everybody was sitting on, somebody designed that, somebody built it. Mm-hmm. The table that you're sitting at, somebody designed it, somebody built it. The projector that you have is technology that you will never understand, that it takes an artist and a problem solver to understand.
Of course, absolutely.
To build those things. The computers that you use to mismanage your budget are artists.
That's true.
That have made that, and these are people who can read code, who can implement things, who can fix things.
Yeah, creative thinkers go further than anyone.
You don't learn how to creative think by Chaucer. I'm sorry, I know you're an English guy, but you don't. You don't learn how to creative problem solve with math. Math has rules. You follow the rules of math, and you can get there. It doesn't have as big an impact on what the arts do, and I mean like the industrial arts, chorus, public speaking, like that's an art.
I have to disagree with you on Chaucer, man. The Miller's Tale's awesome.
It wasn't finished.
Well, it doesn't have to be. You could
Canterbury?
You could still appreciate what's there.
I never appreciated it, Tom, because I never knew how to read.
Well, you don't do words good.
I don't do words. What I don't. Yeah,
you do. You had some pretty good big words.
I love the guy who goes, "You don't do words good."
It's getting worser and worser.
So that's what I want, like the superintendent to understand. That's what I want the school board to understand. And if I can speak directly to Barb Dixon and Katie Gilmartin. Barb has ended up being very good friends with my fiance. Like her and her husband, like God bless them, they're the sweetest people, the kindest people.
Truly, they're amazing.
And Barb is now the president. Barb, I'd like you to know that Victoria, whom you love, she probably would have taken a bridge if it wasn't for art in high school. Like that's what it was. She went through so much tragedy, and she became such a good artist because she took every art class. She came there, and she's from Russia. She came from, not exactly the best situation, and that personality that Barb and her husband experience, and that humor, and that dark sense of humor, and how she treats people. That's from art. Like if you see her art, you're like, baby, I can't. There's no way, like, as my dad says, I can't draw a straight line with a ruler. She's a phenomenal artist.
She is.
But if it wasn't for artists, if it wasn't for books and music and poetry and being able to draw and express your feelings, like she went through serious tragedy. She lost her father. She lost her brother when she came to America. It's terrible. Like Barb, I hate to say this, but when decision time comes, like you need to think about Victoria. And when it comes to Katie, I don't think any of you guys know this, right? I had Katie's dad in grade school.
Oh, wow.
Mr. Gilmartin. I'm remiss to say that my class was not easy for him. We were bastards and we were pricks. I was not. I don't believe that I was part of. I remember days just sitting there, I'm like, that poor guy, because these kids are just assholes. But from what, like, he taught me how to do pottery. He taught me how to draw.
That's awesome.
He taught me how to do like all that. Like Katie, you can't get rid of these things because it's the core of how you grew up. It's the thing that made you who you are. Mm-hmm. And I see her dad, I saw him on election day. He for the life of me, like, God bless him, he doesn't remember me, or maybe he doesn't want to remember me.
I was just gonna say, it's probably better for that PTSD.
No, but he was such a like, in retrospect, like, he was such a talented guy, and his heart was in the right place, and like he went above and beyond, and kids are cruel, and they did some, they were doing things that I didn't approve of. But at the time, like, you're 6 years, like, you're in sixth grade. Like, what do I know about life? I don't know anything about life. I don't know anything about hurt. I don't know anything about pain. He was a phenomenal teacher in retrospect. And if I could do it all over again, I would have been sitting in front of the class, with my hands on my chin, just watching in awe in the brilliance of this man. And that's where Katie comes from.
And I think it's unfair to make somebody that, say, like an English teacher have to teach art or music, because
but that's their new plan.
I know that that's their new plan, but it's not the same, because if you don't have that passion for it, like the teachers do in that curriculum, it's not the same, and nobody's going to love it as much as they're not going to love art if they don't get it from the crazy art teacher who loves to dance around and play music and do that. I still to this day. And I'm 37 years old. My mom taught before I was born, and she went back and got all of her certification, all of her every degree you can freaking think of. And when I was about 16 years old, she became a teacher again. She got a full-time job at West, doing PE. To this day, I still meet her students and say she was the one who changed my life. She was the one who was there for me when I needed her. My mom does that. You can't get rid of that.
That's what teachers do.
She's on the cusp.
It's just like asking me to teach, a physics class.
Keep talking real quick.
Yeah, no problem. There's no way in the world that I'm going to be able to teach a physics class. Mm-hmm. So why would you ask? Why would you even bother, putting someone in who's not qualified? And I remember actually when I got hired at Riverside, they always ask me, why are you a teacher? What do you bring to the table? All that kind of stuff. And I said, the one thing that I bring that I think is unique is passion. Mm-hmm. And the reason I think that that's important is because we've all had teachers who either have checked out or don't care. They exist.
Agreed.
And I'm not saying that they're a minority, of course, but you find that so much less in the arts. Mm-hmm. So, because if you're going to be that music teacher, you're going to love music, and you're going to love sharing it, and you're going to love talking about it. Same thing with art. Mm-hmm. Same thing with really, graphic design.
Agreed.
At Riverside, our graphic design teacher started a 3D printing program just because he loves it.
And I think that's awesome. I mean, things are changing with technology.
Did he pay for the 3D printer?
With proceeds from the stuff that his kids designed and sold in graphic arts.
How about that? That's amazing.
Exactly. So it's
and if you didn't care, you wouldn't go and do all of that.
Yeah, and
most teachers actually give a damn. Now look, there are some bad teachers.
Agreed.
Just like there are some bad accountants, just like there are some bad plumbers, just like there are some bad carpenters, right? And I think that they have to police themselves and say, like, look,
sure,
there's a possibility to lose inspiring teachers. There's a possibility to lose the teachers that are going to change that one kid's life. Like most people go through life going like, I made one difference for one person, and man, that feels good, because most people don't get the opportunity to do that. You have the opportunity to do that every day. Yeah. So we're at the point where we're at right now, and I know you got to go.
No, I've got about 15 minutes.
We're all long-winded. So let me ask this question: is there a way, in your estimation, to not basically rip the heart and soul?
Yes.
Okay.
So
out of the district.
I'm going to talk about two super important things that I think can be done that I think will save an epic amount of money, and one definitely save jobs. So the first thing is the biggest, and I didn't put it in my long post because it didn't even occur to me, and it should have. Riverside was going through a similar problem, and they said, look, we need to save some money. And if we can't save this money, we're going to furlough 5 teachers. Now, Riverside's a lot smaller, so that's, a massive impact. So they said, here's what we're going to offer you.
Now, Scranton's talking about furloughing 87?
89. And that's probably for starters because
it's low.
Well, because they still have $8 million to find. Right. And the place to find it is teachers. So Riverside said, here's what we're going to do.
Is that the place to find it?
It's the biggest expense. So yeah. Healthcare and salary and benefits. So the thing that Riverside said was, look, here's what we're going to do. We need a couple of your teachers to just take voluntary leave. And we'll incentivize you by saying, if you take it, we'll give you either A, healthcare for a year that you're gone, or B, $3,000. And if that happens, we will save enough money to not have to lay people off. And we did it. Now, here's the thing. I didn't think about how much exponential the savings is, because those 89 layoffs only save $1 million. Why? Because of unemployment costs and legacy costs associated with them.
The 89 layoffs in Scranton
Only save $1 million. So the $18 million budget gap is going to be $1 million is shaved off by eviscerating education.
So you save so you find a way to save 6 or 7% by ruining 89 lives.
Yes, well, 89 teachers' lives and families' lives, but also,
Students.
Tens of thousands,
innumerable amounts of students.
Thousands of students. So this thing that Riverside did, the reason it works is because in order for you to save money from a furlough, you have to actually wait 2 years. So you're guaranteeing people are going to be gone for at least 2 years, because the savings doesn't come until after unemployment runs out. So what you do is, if you take a voluntary leave, there is no unemployment. There are no pension payments that the district makes. There are no Social Security, Medicare payments that have to be made. None of that. Plus no salary. Now, they can take healthcare for a year. Well, whatever. Maybe you spend $5,000 a year.
But does that mean that they can't go get a job somewhere else for that 2 years?
They could do that if they wanted, and still
and then come back to their job.
Yeah, because what they do at Riverside is you get a guarantee. You get your job back exactly where you were, what you were doing.
But you're getting the school district's healthcare, and you can go get a job at Granger.
You can work on this. So the people who took it at Riverside were basically like new mothers. They had a kid, and rather than just use their sick days for a year or take an unpaid maternity leave, they're like, oh, I'll keep the healthcare and I'll take a year off. There's one girl who's done it like a couple of years in a row. She's still an employee of the district and hasn't been there in 4 years because she's been having kids and taking this. And that's fine. The district saves a fortune. If she came back, that's a new expense. So I don't have the math on me, but I think if 20 teachers volunteered to do that, you would save $1 million, because you're not paying their salaries. You could be paying their healthcare, maybe it's $5,000 a year. I don't know. I don't know how much people spend on average on healthcare. So it's going to vary wildly, but whatever.
I mean, $500 a month would be, $6,000.
Yeah. So let's say that's what the district pays per person based on what they use. And then, you're not paying all those. The pension costs are a fortune. You don't pay that for that year. You don't have to pay that unemployment. So the savings is exponentially higher if people take voluntary leaves of absence, and it preserves the jobs. So because the one thing I told the directors when I talked to them, I said, if you're
did you talk to them recently?
I've talked to a lot of them. Yeah. I said the one thing that you should deeply consider, and I talked mostly with Barb about this, but I said, you need a plan to bring this stuff back. You can't say we're going to cut 89 jobs and ruin every arts program and every librarian, and not say look, we'll be solvent in 3 years. We promise we'll bring it back in 3 years. That would still be a hard pill to swallow, but it would be not as hard.
I don't think the teachers would. I think they'd understand
more. Yeah. I mean, it wouldn't be good, but it would be better than.
They're not going to be happy, but it's better
right
than
now
you're fired.
Yeah, that's what it's sounding like. So if you do the voluntary leave, you're going to say, okay, for a year, this program or this elective is not going to be available, but after that year, as long as we're fiscally sound, and we will be closer to that because of this,
right?
Then we'll bring it back. And
we didn't buy a jet in the interim.
Yeah, and I don't think they'll be doing that this time.
I hope not.
So I think that's the biggest savings, because you'll get more than 20. I mean, there are about 1,000 teachers in the district. If you can get 10% of them, and I don't.
But that's 100 teachers.
Yeah, it's too much. It's too much because you would lose programs. But the thing is, you would have the guarantee that they'd be returning, and the district savings up front is massive. I think it's about $1 million per 20 teachers. So
I mean, in an instance like that, you take 2 years, the bus contract's up, we renegotiate it, we save money there, right? And in that time, it gives us an opportunity to be fiscally solvent.
And then we can start building.
And then we can start building back up again.
But I said they can't. There's no way that they can do this without having a plan for the future. And the state gave them a 3-month extension on the budget because the crisis is that deep, which means the state's paying attention to what's happening here, which actually is a good thing. But in this 3 months, they need to not only come up with a budget that solves as many problems as it can without doing the least amount of damage as possible. They need to know, well, what the hell's going to happen next year.
Right.
So you need to be thinking in advance. So I hope that the directors are doing that. I know Barb is, and I'm sure a lot of the other ones have to be considering it. But so that thing, I think, would save a fortune it'd save a fortune, it would save jobs, it would preserve jobs, and it would also guarantee that programs that may disappear will reappear. So that's why that's good. And then the next thing, like we actually, when we did it at Riverside, we didn't cut any programs or classes. The people who took it, they took it, and we were able to work it so that nothing changed.
Right.
And hell, maybe the district can start finagling scheduling so that there isn't a negative impact like that. But that's number one. I think number two, and it's something that would take a little bit more time, so it wouldn't be an immediate savings, but the budget really doesn't, I mean, the budget doesn't go into effect until I'm trying to think. A lot of the savings isn't going to hit until the school year starts, the next school year, 2018-19 school year. So form an intergovernmental cooperation authority and do it with the city. Get 2 community members, 2 board members, and 2 city council members, and figure out where you can share services. Garbage pickup, I believe, is done privately. Let's have the DPW do it. Fleet maintenance was done by that Sansky guy. Let's have DPW mechanics do it. And we could pay the city for it, but it would save us money and the city would make some money. That sounds great. And the buildings and grounds might be a little harder because buildings need maintenance, grounds need maintenance, and you're looking at union contracts and what can you do?
That's why they still have maintenance.
No, I know. But so what I'm saying is, what kind of overlap in services could there be for that? What about plowing? The city plows everything. It wouldn't be much harder to add schools to the list because you're going to be by them anyway.
Right.
So
take an extra 15 minutes, do the parking
So instead of paying whatever the district pays, you can just, get it negotiate.
But to me, that's like, let's all work together here to fix this.
And the city is actually and I'm not going to say really good, but in far better shape than it's been. So they have now the resources to be able to start working with the district, because if the district falls apart, the city is going to follow suit.
Right.
We just can't absorb a dead a government entity and expect other things not to have a domino effect. So those kinds of shared services, even like IT, have a unified IT department. The footprint of the district and the city overlap 100%. Work together on that. So computers are computers. That I think has a potential for a lot of savings. Joint purchasing, joint bidding on healthcare. So the largest employer in the county is the Scranton School District. And number 2 might be the county, and I think number 3 is the city. I'm almost positive that if it's not, then they're in the top 5. Imagine that those 2 massive employers of people getting together and saying, we're going to jointly bid our healthcare in a healthcare consortium, because they're both self-insured. They're paying their premiums anyway. They're just paying other people to administrate and be administrators of it. These savings would be insane. They would the amount of money that Blue Cross or that Highmark or Geisinger would make off of a joint government entity that huge, they would underbid each other like crazy to get their hands on that kind of a contract. That's gravy. That's big money for them, and they've been actively competing. And so there's.
So we're operating at a $19 million deficit now, right?
Yeah.
So if you can find a way to save $5 million a year, and then gradually
you have to find all 19 right now.
Is that how dire it is? It's not like we can.
That's this year.
Just give us 3 years.
Well, they took the loan out, so it's not like that's an option again.
So that was part of what I also talked about with some people. So yes, they have to find that all now. What I said was in my post that maybe a loan would be an option under one condition, and I don't think a bank would be willing to give the district a loan unless there was this condition that you could prove that next year you will not need a loan. So if, let's say, they've come up with $15 million in savings,
because it's a bad investment.
Well, yeah, but the thing is, the other thing about a loan is the district has a lot of outstanding loans. You can refinance those loans at lower rates, because rates are very low right now, and lower your yearly debt service payments, but also take out a little extra to cover this as a one-time thing. Now, here's the thing that we've been doing a bunch of one-time things. That's why I said the only way that works is if we have the caveat of you have a solvency plan. you have to have a solvency
Is
plan.
there a solvency plan right now besides like slash and burn?
No. There right now. So I've cautioned the directors to look ahead to not just this disaster, but how we move on after this disaster. And like I said, Barb Dixon, she's been really responsive to that. Right now, they're looking at what's in front of them, and you can't blame them. But the thing is, if they're able to say to the new business manager, who they have to hire ASAP as soon as Sunday retires, is you got a lot on your plate. You're going to be putting in a lot of late nights, but I need revenue projections for the following fiscal year. And I need to know how the hell we're going to survive that year also. And if you can look at that and budget that far ahead, you could say, look, hey, we have increased revenue in year 1920. We have all these savings that are going to happen. Why don't you give us a loan to bridge that gap? With your loan, it changes the budget this much, and we can afford that. That would be the only way to take a loan. But that requires a lot of number running.
Unless there's a consensus reached. Like, okay, so my one question is this. Is it possible to get out of this without furloughing all these teachers?
So I think in place of furloughs, the voluntary leave saves the jobs and some programs up front and all programs long term.
I mean, it's just some of them are going to get put. There's a pause button. We're going to put a pause on this program.
Yes, and that's better than goodbye forever.
I agree.
But I know there's a lot of people locally who are willing to go, like, look, after school, individuals in the community saying, like, we will fill the gap of like music or art or whatever. Like, we'll do it, and they'll probably do it for free to fill the gap of that, so that kids can, United Neighborhood Centers does it a lot down at their places. Is there a way out of this? Is there a responsible, common sense, Vulcan logic way to get to it besides going like, all right, let's put 89 teachers over in the corner and just make them disappear?
So aside from the stuff that I think that they should follow all the recommendations that I posted. And I know some of them might not be 100% feasible or may need tweaks, but there's a lot of them that just have to happen, and they can't happen. And I really think the biggest bit of gravy for them is and it's not pie in the sky, because Riverside's done it and it's worked, is this voluntary leave thing. I think that saves an absolute fortune with the added bonus of saving jobs.
Now, at the meeting last night, it seemed like it was like a UN meeting between, like, North Korea and Trump. Like, it just seemed like they were so polarized on who had an opinion and what that opinion meant.
The board.
So Dr. Kieran. I know she was. I said the correct, right?
Dr. Kieran. I know she was combative.
She went up there and said, I have a vote of no confidence in the union leadership.
So let me. I have to end on this note.
And let me ask you this: the administrative people in there, right? I think they should get paid teacher salaries.
They should. So the downtown admin building people should definitely see a cut, like a 5 to 10% cut.
Yeah, but they're asking teachers to wage freezes. They're asking teachers to get fired. They're asking.
I know.
Not one of them seems to be willing to make a concession for themselves.
Yeah, so they're doing. They took
to
a voluntary.
Me, like, I hate to say it, but that's fucking shameful.
Yeah, you don't have to,
because you're the captains of the ship here.
Yeah, you have to set an example. So if you want,
they're not setting the example.
Yeah, so they took a 4% cut, but that's not enough, and they make and everyone making
they're all
over
making six figures.
Yeah, I know exactly. So they need to take a bigger cut. But the thing is, and this one, and I don't think it should be controversial. And I mentioned this, in January, the union has been offered if you take a voluntary 6th period, we'll pay you, and then we can save jobs through attrition. So if that 2nd grade teacher is teaching 6 classes instead of 5, well, when her next door neighbor retires next year, we don't have to hire a replacement. And the union's not agreeing to it. And it would be voluntary. So, and you would be paid. So no one who doesn't want to do it has to do it. No one's forced. That's A. And then B is those who want it are getting paid for it. And then C is it's a guaranteed savings to the district. I don't know why the union hasn't accepted it.
I know they're drops in the bucket, but at the end of the day, but the drops in the bucket eventually fill up the bucket.
Yeah. And I don't think that one is even, that's not even a small drop, because, any 50 to 80 teachers retire every year. I mean, so you don't have to replace maybe half of them. That's a massive.
They're talking about taking, English teachers and making them do phys ed.
I know.
Like my mom had to get certified for 5 years to do that. Like,
I know.
So what?
It's
So what are they saying? Like that all that money and all that schooling that you did is actually kind of moot.
Yeah, it's just nonsense.
Because we can get Borthwick to do it.
Yeah, it's a desperate, silly kind of solution. I don't think they really know what the hell they're going to be able to do to make this work if it goes through. But I don't think in the end it'll go through quite the way it looks right now. I think they'll save a lot of the jobs. And like I said, I've been telling the directors every detail I can about this leave thing. And I think if it happens, I think you're looking at you're looking at so many jobs and programs saved long term, short term and long term.
Because the point is to cut costs, get to being solvent, stop being taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Stop allowing the people who allow people to get taken advantage of to be in positions to make decisions.
Yeah.
And how do we make sure that these kids get a well-rounded, not just education, but experience? Because what they're taking away is like we just got to do the test, man. Like we have to do math trig and blah blah blah, and that is just not what life is. Most people don't use trigonometry when we get out of here. Most people don't reference Chaucer when they get out of here. No offense to you, but they're going to go on to be writers and they're going to go on to be, scholars or whatever they go on to be. But there's some people who just want to be mechanics. There's some people who want to be plumbers. You're getting rid of the industrial arts. Thank Jesus for getting rid of that, because we're never going to have a plumber or a carpenter ever again.
Two important things, because you keep killing me with this Chaucer shit. I teach.
It's the only thing I know.
I teach Votech kids Chaucer, so I've had a lot of years to get them to convince them that it's valuable.
Right.
So I definitely disagree with you, because there's critical thinking, analysis, theme, the ability to reference and understand.
There's a lot of other people, but Chaucer, it's just the one I like to say.
Whatever. But it doesn't matter about Chaucer. It's every piece of literature, there's value to it as long as it's presented.
There's a message.
Yeah, well, yeah. So stop shitting
a life
on these.
lesson.
So stop.
The Bible is like that.
Yeah, great. We're going to read the Bible.
I don't read the Bible, but
Well,
but in there is
anyway,
all these things.
But the thing I want to leave on is this, because I've got to go to a parking authority meeting and save another government entity from dying.
We need to get you a cape.
Yeah, hey, I'm for it. So
no capes.
So the thing is, the vast majority of directors I know for a fact would agree with everything we've just said. The situation is that dire that they just can't do much about it, and I know that is really sucking for them. Some of them are more ignorant than others about certain things, but the vast majority of them are like, no, we can't let. They don't want to see these jobs gone. They don't want to see these programs gone. They're looking desperately right now to figure out how to not do that. And that's why I'm contacting them constantly with, hey, what about this? Hey, what about that?
I'm leaving an open invite out to anybody on the board, anybody in administration who would be interested to come in here and have this conversation. I'd be happy to have it and explain to me like your point of view. Because I trust Tom. I value his opinion. I value his insight. I don't think that he just off the cuff says stuff. I don't think that you just willy-nilly decide like, oh, I'm going to write words and these words make sense to me and I have given zero thought to them. Like Trump. Yeah. And I think that some of your ideas are incredibly valuable and should be explored and not ignored because you wrote them.
I don't think, I'm the kind of guy who I don't get ignored. Of
course, you're wearing a pink shirt. No one's going to ignore you.
No, it's like I'll be in your face.
And you're wearing like a coat of arms necklace.
I am, yes.
I pay attention.
I know.
All right.
Yeah, they're going to hear me. They hear me. But, I will. I'm not an idiot. And as long as they're not idiots, they'll know that I'm not an idiot. And that,
I don't think the board is necessarily an idiot.
No. I didn't. That's not what I mean.
No. I didn't think you were saying that. I'm just saying from my point of view.
It's like you're all in this together, though. Yeah, so you might as well.
But they need to realize that contrary to differing opinions, right?
Agreed.
You're all in the same boat and the boat's taking on water, right? So whether or not you agree on how to plug the holes, plug
Agree
plug
that
the
they're there.
holes.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Get on it.
Yeah, get on it. I don't care how you do it. If it's bubble gum, if it's duct tape,
Start chewing.
somebody's got to figure out how to do it, and somebody's got to just do it.
Agreed.
Well,
I
Mark,
appreciate your time.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate you coming here. Please check out tomborthwick.com. I'm hoping you'll write more.
I most certainly will.
Please share the podcast if you can.
Oh,
Reach
yeah.
out to your board friends and see if they'd be willing to come on and talk.
I
to
absolutely
us.
will.
This is not something that I think is going. They didn't make the vote last night. I don't know when they're going to make the vote.
They have 3 months.
Okay, so in between now and then, I would like people to explain, what their points of view are, how they think this can work, and at some point, I'd like to get the Charles Grodin economist from Dave to come on here and say who balances these budgets.
There you go.
Thank you all for listening.
Yeah,
Hopefully,
thanks. It's been lovely.
I'd like to thank Stacey, and I'd like to thank Tom. I'm going to try to get this up tonight. Hopefully, people pay attention to it. I would like to thank the over 13,000 people who have viewed and shared the video from last night. And have a great week.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Thanks.